There we are. Welcome, welcome. Yes, Terry is going to lead us in a courage mastermind today. And Terry, you have been doing the Heart of Courage conversation. So I'm curious to see if this is going to tie in or if this is a totally new topic on leadership today. So what are you starting us out with? And if you want to share a little bit more about why we're talking about courage and leadership,
Sure.
we'd love to have you do that.
You bet. It will coincide with some of the same principles that we've talked about, because we've only really talked about two things so far in our courage conversation, which is we talked about compassion and we talked about connection, which are two components of courage as well as components of leadership. So there will be some similarities, but I want to start out with a story. And I want you to, I'll just summarize the story. You'll all be familiar with it. And then how does that story correlate with our personal leadership style and how we've, kind of developed that as we've been leaders, because all of us on the talk right now, and many of you that are in the OP community, are speakers. And so anybody who speaks is a courageous person, anybody. But I want to talk about the story, the children's story book called The Little Engine That Could. And you're all familiar with that story. It's that I think I can, I think I can. And then the little engine actually does exactly what she thought she could do. What I want to think about in that story, though, is not the little engine that could, but the other engines that were involved in that story, which you may or may not remember them because they weren't a positive part of the story at all. But there were three other engines that came along, and the little clown and the train that broke down tried to get help from them as well. And so the first one that came along was a big, powerful steam engine. And he just thought he was too good to help a little engine like the one that had broken down, the little blue engine that broke down. And so he just steamed off. And sometimes, not any of us, but some people feel like if they're giving themselves to an audience, and it needs to be an audience that's going to reciprocate, or a big audience. Some people won't even schedule talking to people if there's not 100 people or 200 people or whatever. So if that's the case, then what's driving them in their leadership? I would guess, what would you guess is their motivating factor?
I would think about, you know, more clientele or followers, the numbers matter more than
The message, yeah.
the message. Yeah.
Yeah. And the word that comes to my mind is pride.
Mm.
And I believe there's no place for pride in a speaker's leadership or in any kind of leadership, because to me, pride is a fault that makes people think they're better than other people, which is what that engine thought, right? I pull an engine like you, is what he said to the little clown. So that that was one idea that I thought, if you're going to be a courageous leader, and a leader has followers, and if you want people to follow you, then pride and being the example that engine exhibited would probably be not a component of a courageous leader whose goal is to motivate and serve others and be providing assistance and knowledge and wisdom and support to those people that want to follow. The next engine that came along was a very small engine, and that engine just said, I can't do that. There's no way. I can't do that. He just kept saying, I can't do that, and just puffed on by. So the book that you're reading, Worthy, I was listening to it before I got back from my meeting, talks all about how, we play small. We don't value our gifts and talents. And we talked about that this morning. I think all of us were there when Leah talked about her unique qualities and how as a child she felt they were not accepted, they were weird, that she was different. And yet as a leader, which she is a marvelous leader now, she recognizes those unique qualities she has are gifts. Gifts from, I mean, we all agree, gifts from God that make her the exact right person to lead the people that will follow her. And they will come to her because of her unique ways of working with them. And so again, we don't want to play small. We don't want to think we can't do something. So that engine was of no service to this little train that had broken down. And when we think about life, all of us break down at some point, and we're led out of that, whatever it is, that situation, that, whether it's we lose a job, we lose a spouse, our children, whatever, we break down. And we need leaders to help us come out of that environment where we've broken down. And so this is kind of how I relate that little engine that broke down to these leaders, potential leaders coming down the track that they're asking to assist them to take care of their brokenness. So then another train comes along, and this is a more mature, we'll say old train. And the old train comes along and the little says, please, please, won't you help us? We need to get to the other side of the mountain, or the children won't have all the things that they were carrying on the train. And this engine just says, I'm sorry, I'm too old. I'm too tired. I can't help you. And he just limps off to the roundhouse. So I can relate to this engine because I am older, but I also made a determination as a leader that as a more mature person, I had a lot to give based on experience, and that I'm more than willing to, as a leader, share that experience. And we were talking this morning too about vulnerability. And I think I was listening to the book, and I think she was talking about vulnerability sometimes being, we feel it's rejected, and that makes us feel less and smaller and of less value. So I just think, again, people can say, I'm too old, I'm too tired, and that can become an excuse for not carrying on and leading, because every time you talk to people, you put your example in front of people, you are leading. And if you're saying, I'm too old, I'm too tired, then you're leading people to see that excuse. And maybe other people will think, well, I'm too old too. I'm too tired. I can't, I can't go down this journey of leadership and working together. So the little engine that could comes along, and she's just a little engine too. She's not very big. She's hardly bigger than the engine that broke down. And yet she sees that these toys and all the little clown, they want to get to the other side of the mountain because they want to help the children on the other side of the mountain, which we could think of the mountain as being leadership. We could think of the people on the other side, those who want our services. So she says, I will do my best. I will do it. Now she says, try. I would change it to practice, but she says, I will do it. And she hooks herself up to the little train, that's broken down, and starts to go over the mountain. And she's really working, chugging along, putting forth the maximum effort that she can. And she's saying to herself, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And she keeps going, and it could be, I'll practice, I'll go, I'll show up, I'll, whatever words you want to add in there to, I think I can, I think I can. She gets to the top of the mountain. She sees all the children on the other side and how happy they are to see her. And then she starts down the decline into the valley, and she says, I knew I could, I knew I could, I knew I could. And she did. And I think that's the power of that story, is that if we believe, right? Like, name went out of my head, but you know who I mean. Think and Grow Rich. When we have that belief in ourselves, and I think the gal, what's her name, Lima, that wrote the book, Worthy, it's if we believe, we think that we can, then we can. And so as leaders, I think that, we may be put in situations that are out of our comfort zone, but if we're willing to practice and think we can, which is like we're willing to give it a go, we're willing to believe in ourselves, then we can do it. And so I think that story just resonates with me, being a kindergarten teacher. And that story, I don't know if you guys ever had the little golden books, but that's a little golden book. And I just think it's a story that can relate to almost anything that we want to think about doing, but especially to leadership, because we may be thrown into positions that we don't feel that we believe we can do them. And yet, if we can just remember our value and our reason and why we do what we do, then we can practice and we can get better. And we can, she says, I think I can, I think I can, whatever mantra we want to use to, I know I can, I know I can. And then I did, which is another way to look at it. But I think that's the courage that comes into being a leader, is to stepping out and doing something that's not easy for you, is a challenge. And I know, in knowing both of you, that you've had those experiences in your life. And I've shared multiple times my experience of running for city council, and to ad nauseum probably. But that was definitely out of my comfort zone. And yet I just took it step by step, like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. So I don't know if one of you would be willing to share one of those times in your life when you, like that little engine, went and took those steps out of your comfort zone, and you did something that increased your capacity to be a leader, that took you to the place of learning new ways to relate to people and new ways to communicate and connect with people in order to be a more proficient, effective leader.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I can share. Um, I am, I was sharing earlier today that I had the realization about how I choose a lot of times to lead in situations, so that I do put myself in a situation where I'm intentionally growing, right? I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. I don't fully think I'm qualified or the best person for a role, or, you know, seat on a board or what have you, right? Stepping up into a leadership position. I probably would have never called myself even a leader, had I not just started raising my hand and volunteering to support boards and positions for organizations to get that personal development rolling, that growth in who I was becoming. That, now I have my own podcast. I have, I'm a managing director for an organization. I've been on multiple boards for leadership positions, all of those things really have helped me develop my understanding how everyone is a leader. And specifically, I put myself in leadership roles so that I could practice stepping out. I could practice strengthening my self-confidence in the potential that I had as a person versus what I already knew in my life. And that is courageous,
Absolutely.
every time we do
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
we don't know, it's unknown, it's uncertain. And being willing to be a beginner, I think, is a big part of that, that I am always reminded of, the goodness that comes from that, the curiosity and the strength that we build when we say yes to those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that I must have been born with leadership genes, because I can remember very young, I always wanted to be the president of whatever it was that I was doing. So in third grade, I started a club called the Chattering Chipmunks.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like
Um,
four girls, and we do little things, we go to each other's house, or our parents would let us have sleepover, whatever. But I wanted to be the president. I always felt like, and I don't know what was driving me to do that, but I just always felt like I had the capacity. And that started at an early age, but then it kind of got squashed down as, life went on in high school. I probably lost a lot of it. But yeah, I think it's something that is innate, and it may be innate in everyone, or it might be a unique gift that we're given. And some of us have that and some of us may not. I don't know, but it's something that's always appealed to me, and I always step up when there's an opportunity to do that. If it's an organization where you go through chairs to get there, you have to start out in this place and you move up until you're the president or whatever. I've always said I'm in. I'm in. I'll go through that process, and it makes me feel whole to do that. So I know that it's not ego driven. It's more of a feeling that that's something I can do, and I can serve in that way. So that's kind of been, for me, that's been an interesting journey now that I can look back, from the time I was in third grade until now, and see those opportunities that I've taken. But it's like a drive for me. It's like if I, like you said, I see an idea and I can see what it would look like if it happened, and then I want to make it happen. And I don't have to do it by myself. I gather people around me, and we go to it. So I think that takes courage to say, yeah, I think I have that capacity, and say it in a way that people accept it as a service oriented, not an ego driven thing, because I know people that are driven by ego and that it doesn't come across that way. Yeah. So when you think about that, about being, like, I think you said it, Becky, you said it's something that you just do. And
Mhm.
I think you do it because you have that drive.
Mhm.
And I know, Terry, you have had multiple opportunities to step out and be a leader in your work as well.
I was going to say probably the first time, because I think Terry, I felt really very similar to how you did in school. That leadership quality. I always wanted to be involved, but never really had the opportunity. Didn't really have um, the followers, and I felt kind of like that outsider, like Leah was talking about. So I mean, I had friends, but I never had you know, that click. I never had a group that I ever fit into, where it was like, oh yeah, these are my people, right? Like this is my tribe. And so when I was in college, I had my first opportunity with leadership when I was going to the United Campus Ministry House. My roommates had invited me, and I started going on Wednesday nights for their fellowship dinner and, cooking for the group and things like that. And when they did the uh, voting, if you will, for the following year, I was voted in for the spring break deacon to lead the spring break trip. And um, that was the first time that I ever really had an opportunity to kind of stretch my wings and see what was really possible to do. Um, I came from a background of, extreme poverty. So, being very frugal with the trip was important to me, not having to spend a lot of money on the trip, knowing that everybody was college students and things like that. Um, but I managed to, get grants for the uh, transportation for the trip, and we did a trip to New Orleans, and we worked at Habitat for Humanity for a week. And because Tulane University was on spring break the same week that we were able to stay at their United Campus Ministry House for free. So we had free housing for the week. And so we just had to sleep in sleeping bags on the floor. So, I mean, it was kind of a co-ed sleeping arrangement. I mean, everybody was all over the place. And the only thing that we had to pay for was $25 for the week to use the recreational facility to get showers and stuff. That was it. So, we had gotten grants for the transportation down there. We drove, and there were 33 students that went. And so we had such a large group, we had to split it up into two different sites because they couldn't accommodate 33 people with tools and everything else. I mean, it was just too much. And so we split it up, and then at night, everybody got a chance to kind of do what they wanted to do. And half the group, I remember very specifically, half the group was like, oh, we should just stay here and do prayer group. And my thought was, we're in New Orleans. God gave us this gift. Let's go use it, like let's explore and let's see what's out here. So, I was on the side of, let's go have fun, and others stayed back and just did prayer group. And I'm like, okay, well, you can do that, but I'm gonna go experience this because I'll probably never have a chance to do this again for a while. And one time at the job site, there were people coming up to me constantly, Tara, what should we do next? What should we do next? What should we do next? That whole leadership role and, kind of trying to facilitate everything at all times. And the site manager has just said to them, he said, you know what? Find a need and fill it. If it needs to be raked, rake it. If it needs to be shoveled, shovel it. If it needs to be picked up, then pick it up. And it was just the simplest thing that he had told us, but it just resonated so much for me that I, have used that multiple times where I really feel like when I'm in a group, especially organizations on a board, or when you're trying to organize a fundraiser, or, trying to do things and people are constantly asking questions, and it's like, you know what, find a need and fill it. It's just that simple. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. So it was amazing. But that was my very first experience with leadership. And but there were also things that I learned from that experience because the person who ran the United Campus Ministry, the pastor who ran it, was very unhappy about the trip. Wanted to go to St. Louis instead of New Orleans, and did not want to do New Orleans. Didn't speak to me the entire trip. I felt absolutely awful. Instead of feeling like I accomplished something, I felt like I was a failure because this one person wouldn't talk to me and was very disappointed. And that was really hard for me. As the leader, you kind of take responsibility for the entire group and making sure that everybody was safe. And there were two people that were walking on a side street by themselves, and we were told to not go anywhere in groups less than 4. And we were told not to go in, especially on the side streets. And 2 girls did get their things stolen, but nobody was hurt and nobody was injured, and they were able to, file police reports and things like that. So, I mean, I counted that as a win, that everybody, was safe and, came back safe and alive. That was a good thing. But
Yeah, alive, good.
yeah. But it was an experience for sure. I mean, I felt amazing that I accomplished what I did, but yet at the same time had this, conflicting emotion because I felt really bad that not everybody was happy with the decisions that I made. And so that was a realization as a new leader, that you're not going to make everybody happy all the time. And that, that when you step into that role, you have to accept the fact that you're going to have people that are going to have different opinions about things, and that you're never going to make everybody happy all the time. So don't try. you know, do what's right for the job itself and, follow that mission, whatever that is, and do what's right in your soul because you're the one that stepped up to take care of it, right? If someone else wanted to lead it, they could have, but they didn't. No one volunteered. And so, it's like when they agree to come along, they're sort of signing uh, an admission of followership, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
because they're not taking the leadership role. And when you come along as a follower, like you sort of have to, agree that the leader may do things that you don't agree with. But if you don't like it, then do something about it, which is to take over that leadership role. And if people don't, then then that's on them, right? Like that's not on the leader. And, so that was um, a big learning experience for me in college as the very first time that I really was able to kind of spread my wings and see what my capabilities were. And that was amazing. And I've, had multiple experiences since then where I've been able to lead different projects and, fundraisers and make lots of money and have lots of fun. And well, everything should be fun, I think. Because if it's not fun, then why do it? Um, so, um, but that's kind of where my first leadership role really started was at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. I think both of you brought up some really good points about characteristics of good leaders. And I'd kind of like to explore a few of those in the time that we have left. First of all, a good leader is a good listener, correct? And so how does that impact followers when the leader is a good listener?
I think when the leader's a good listener, they followers feel heard and
Mhm.
seen. Um, and that their concerns are addressed. And I probably wasn't the best listener when I was in college. I'll admit that I probably was not very good at that point in time. I was kind of set in my ways and my beliefs, and I still to this day don't think that I was wrong. In fact, I've actually had several of the people that stayed back in the prayer group that were like, oh, that a couple years after the fact came back to me and said, hey, we really should have just explored and we really should, we're sorry that we didn't, take the time to actually go and see Bourbon Street and, go do the things in New Orleans that everybody else did. And
Yeah,
so
eat
that was,
beignets.
yes. You have to go to Jackson Square and have beignets
Yeah,
and
absolutely. A Café de Moon.
yes. Um, and so like that was very validating for me, but I
You
think
bet.
when, the followers need to be heard in order to,
Yes, yes, it empowers others. A true leader empowers others, right? It has them feel valued. And when we listen, and I mean listen, actively listen, which is not just with our ears, but we listen with our eyes and we listen with our heart, right? That's what I call active listening. And that really can set you apart as a leader who people will follow. And then
Mhm,
another quality I think that's really important is, so first is to listen. The second is to be a learner, to learn. And continuous learning is, I can't think of an effective leader that I've followed that wasn't a continuous leader, a learner. They're always learning. They're always open-mindedness, welcoming other people's thoughts and opinions and perspectives and learning from that and engaging then in ongoing development, your own ongoing development, as well as you are helping and supporting others to have ongoing development as well. It's like the leader that walks beside and with, doing the building the house with
mhm,
the participants, walking along beside of them and learning and seeking feedback is a huge part of learning as a leader and being willing to listen to the feedback and not take it personal, but take it as an opportunity to improve their own development. And they continue to participate in book groups and workshops and Never say, I know it all. I don't need to learn anything else. You know, that's the leader that people follow. And then love. I mean, we talked about love all day today. You know, love is the connection through compassion, empathy, and really emphasizing the importance of understanding and accepting the people that are following you, and really fostering that meaningful connection. That's one of the things that sets OP apart, is that even though we haven't all met each other, I mean, luckily we've met each other, but you know, we haven't met everybody that's in the community, and yet we foster those meaningful connections, and that's a part of love. And it brings us back to be led by one another. You know, each of us has our own area of expertise, and we're open to being led by one another and leading when it's our time to lead as well. So showing appreciation, expressing gratitude, and acknowledging the efforts of those people that work with you, that you work beside. I like to think of as a leader walking hand in hand, you know, not out in front, sometimes behind, and helping that other person be the one in front, you know, just all those times when a leader doesn't have to be at the front of the pack, you know. They can be the one encouraging someone else to step up and lead, to encourage their growth and their development as leaders, because then that builds trust. And at the foundation of trust is honesty, you know, and being reliable, and in your interactions with those that are in your community. And I think that's what we've developed here at OPWP as a community. And it's a community of leaders, and a community of followers, and a community of supporters, and each of us can take each role at different times. And that's what makes it so powerful, because we're transparent. You know, somebody leads a book group, well, there's a leader leading the book group, but everyone participates in the discussion. So there's the valuing everyone's opinion, everyone's perspective. You know, you may have people that have a deep faith and spiritual nature, and others who don't have that in their experience, nor don't want that in their experience. Yet we can learn from each other so much, you know, and the perspectives that we have. And so being able to be transparent and reliable in our interactions, being compassionate and authentic, and in alignment with our own personal values. And if leadership is one of those values, then we have every opportunity to express that, to practice that, and to, you know, grow as a leader. I personally, you know, my personal leader that I try to emulate is Jesus Christ. I mean, that is to me the ultimate leader. And fortunately, I can study about his leadership, you know, through the teachings that are left in the scriptures, or whatever you want to call them. And you know, so I have a list in my closet with all the characteristics that I have gleaned by reading about Jesus and what he did, what he said, how he treated people. And that's my exemplar. That's my exemplar of a leader, ultimate leader. And then I have all the marvelous people that I've been associated with in my life that have been leaders in my life. And I look at their characteristics as well. And they usually align. They usually align. And because what was Christ's main leadership skill? Love. Yeah. And so it's just, I think listening, learning, and loving are three ways that we can become really empowered and able to empower others to lead in a way that's in alignment with the values that we share. And it doesn't have to be that we believe the same things politically or religiously or how we raise our children, or we don't have to be aligned in our practices, but in our values, where we all value integrity, honesty, trustworthiness, love. Those things are universal. And those are the things that we can be in alignment with. And I feel that alignment with every person that is in OPWP, and like in the Gather community, and in Thriving Women in Business, and Kiwanis, and you know, the connections and the organizations that I'm in. I feel like those underlying qualities are what lead me to those organizations that are all service based and lead me to learn, listen, and then love those opportunities that I have. So that's kind of what I wanted us to talk about. So I did a lot of talking here, right, for a few minutes. So anyone else want to add to that discussion? I just want to leave you with those three main ideas and how they relate to the story of the little engine that could, because she listened to the need. She learned that she could do it if she tried, and she loved both the people that asked for help and the people that she brought the help to. And so I think that we can kind of think of her, and I say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, or I know I can, I know I can, I know I can, or I'm willing to practice, I'm willing to practice, I'm willing to practice, whatever that little mantra is that helps us to listen, to learn, and then to love. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you about being a leader, and then just asking you, what kind of a leader do you want to be, and how do you want to show up, and does that resonate with you?
Yeah, thank you, Terry, for bringing the story, the little engine that could. I love how you bring um, those childlike wonder to your teachings. It's always super fun to just reconnect with that, and the the idea of how much we hear other people a lot of times, or sometimes we hear people talk about how they can't do something, and
Right. Yeah.
um, I I practice helping people recognize that they're making a choice to stop something, or to um, choose something different, that maybe isn't as aligned with what they say they want. And I think that that's another big part of exactly what you're saying. We're listening what people are saying, and then, I like to help other people learn, that their words matter, that the way that they're approaching something matters. And through the story, I mean, that's perfect to hear how, limiting beliefs stopped the others, and the little engine that could, didn't let those things stop her. She decided to go a different route, and um, fill herself with belief and faith, and um, take action instead
Yeah.
of waiting around for someone else to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to, there's three things that I like to take from that story as well. And they don't all apply to leadership, but in a way they do. Is the first thing, is that it's never too late, it's never too late. And that's something that just really, I'm 80 years old. It's never too late. Never too late to listen, never too late to learn, never too late to love. And we all break down. We all break down, just like that little engine that broke down and needed help. And we all can, we all can do anything when we're willing to ask for help.
Mm.
Because she probably couldn't have been that positive about it, or even had the opportunity to learn that, and if they hadn't asked for help, if the little clown hadn't gotten out of the, it's a toy clown, but in the book it talks, the little clown hadn't gotten out of the train and asked for help, and the little clown didn't just ask once, had to ask 4 times before somebody said they would help. And so I think there's a lot to be learned in there about listening, being willing to learn, because the little clown also learned, right? Learned that asking for help is a good thing to do. He was like the leader of the stuff getting over the mountain, and that was his concern. Yeah, so I love that story. I can make it fit almost anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you went a little deeper on those teachings again, because I don't remember those details, right?
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
that that's part of the teaching, and understanding, like, yeah, we don't ask once. I was kind of complaining about that earlier today, about how many times I got to ask so many times, like of my children, or you know,
Oh,
those kinds of things, and how I get discouraged that I need to say the same things over and over and over.
yeah.
But then here's another side of that to really know, yeah, it can take longer than we want to receive what we want or need. And being patient is a big part of leadership as well.
Well, it is. And I mean, for me, it was, I can really relate to those because I was really broken, you know, after everything, when my husband killed himself and all of that, I was broken. But I was going on because I knew if I didn't, I was afraid my kids would break. And yeah, but I wouldn't ask for help. I would not ask for help because I was still of a mind that I had to be perfect. So the perfectionism is what kept me from growing and kept me from leading from my authentic soul and learning how that I wasn't the only person that was broken. I mean, you know, and that all of us have our own breaking points, and all multiple times are we broken. It's not just one thing at one time. And asking for help is so important, and knowing that it's never too late to learn that. It's never too late to learn that. I mean, I didn't learn it then. Dick died when I was 49 years old. I was 65 before I learned that I could not have to be perfect and that I could ask for help and that people were more than willing to help me. And that they actually liked me better as being a vulnerable person who didn't think they were perfect. And, you know, just like, so thank goodness I'm living a longer time so I can enjoy that
Yes.
revelation of leading myself down a different path, you know, that asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. And understanding that it's never too late and that we all break down and we all need help, just like that little engine.
Absolutely. I love that too. And that ties in really ties in really well with living on purpose. You know, the fact that we're
Absolutely.
here talking about celebrating the fact that we live on purpose and the way that we choose to do that, and talking about leadership and all of those components and characteristics, you know, those are all choices. We could choose to stay in our breakdowns, right? We could choose to stop asking for help. We could choose the pity party, or, you know, all of those things that won't get us anywhere. They'll keep us there.
Yep.
And leaders choose growth. They choose an opportunity to get unstuck and get moving.
Yeah. 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 I was listening to the book Worthy when I was driving to and from the different meetings I went to after this morning, listening to you guys talk about the book. And, you know, she was talking about being stuck. And I really resonated with what you were talking about rejection, because I guess that's a chapter that you may have discussed recently. But I looked through that component of the workbook. I love the workbook, by the way. And thinking, yeah, rejection can be seen as something really, really awful and horrible and scary, or it can be feedback. And
Yep.
if you're listening and you're willing to learn, you'll love yourself as you move forward, accepting that feedback. You know, just build that more confidence in yourself and your capacity to not have rejection get you stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
A lot of
Terry.
good stuff. A lot of good stuff here.
Always good stuff. Always great conversation and wisdom that pours from you. Thank you so much for holding space for us to have a mastermind around the courageous opportunities to be leaders more in our life, and making those choices.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank